Good morning, afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world of Group Trucks Asia and joint ventures. My name is Bengt-Göran Ingemar Rosqvist, but please do call me BG. I'm the Driver Development Manager here in HQ. Welcome this time to the 5th episode of our series 5 Minutes with BG, where we tackle tips and tricks on driver development. The first topics has been released and we see numerous comments coming in, but don't forget, we still need your comments to tell us what topics you would like to see handled. So don't hesitate and send us a message to our email address or leave us a comment. And we'll make sure that one of the next episodes is dedicated to the things that you want to see. This little video clip will take just a couple of minutes, but it can save lives. So pay attention as we handle the topic adverse road conditions. As I said, in this episode we will talk about adverse road conditions and, more importantly, how to handle them safely. That's why it's important to know how you as a driver should tackle difficult road sections without getting into trouble. When you look at the image, it seems quite serene, driving on a gently winding road in a hilly landscape. But don't let your first impression fool you. This is one of the most challenging roads out there, and it may get dangerous sooner than you may suspect. So let's get into it. Let's talk about those adverse road conditions, shall we? By the way, the bridge is intended for actually heavy vehicles, heavy trucks. Rock-covered roads are typically stable, providing acceptable traction. Be aware of sharp rocks that may cause damage to your tires. In uphill or downhill situations, small rocks may act as ball bearings under your tires and make it difficult to control the truck. In this case, it is important not to spin the wheel when ascending to avoid locking up the wheels and when descending. Larger rocks may become wedged between the twin-mounted tires and when driving at speed become projectiles that may damage your truck or other vehicles or persons. If the road is cut from a sheer cliff, sharp edges may cut the tire tread. Also, cliff roads provide poor traction when wet, comparable to cobblestone roads. Also, different types of rocks in cliffs provide different friction, and therefore the traction may vary considerably between different types of rock. Always drive with caution and adjust your speed to conditions. In slippery conditions, the interaxle diff lock may be used. Be cautious whenever using the exhaust brake or the extra engine brake. Determine the road surface before engaging to prevent slipping of the wheels. Steep inclines are always a challenge, and sometimes we see this sign with gradient mentioned. But what is gradient? What is steep? Generally, if the incline is steeper than 15%, we consider it to be steep. Your truck should have the torque and the transmission to climb this without an issue, provided you handle this correctly and you have enough traction. Remember, traction comes down to the road surface and the condition and type of your tires. Okay, how do we handle these inclines then? On inclines up to 15%, it is possible to change gears. Between 15 to 20, it is difficult. And at 25%, it's practically impossible for a normal driver to shift before the truck has come to a stop. Select the suitable gear at the base of the steep incline and go up slow and steady. Remember that at 25%, the road climbs 25 meters per 100 meters of level measurement. You know what they say, what goes up must come down. Steep declines are equally challenging, and the general advice is to use the same gear going down as you would to go up. Using the exhaust brake or the extra engine brake depends on the road surface. If you drive too fast downhill and just use the drive wheels to slow down without or with the engine brake or EEB, your truck may end up in the same situation as the truck in the picture, or even worse. Loose gravel or stones act like ball bearings under your wheels and may cause your truck to jackknife. That's why you should always use the exhaust or EEB brakes together with the service brakes. Our modern UD trucks are of course equipped with ABS, and this prevents your wheels from locking up, but don't use your brakes for too long without letting them cool off, since this may cause fading and you can lose your brakes altogether. Brake firmly for a brief moment and then release the foot brake and let the exhaust brake or the EEB do the job until you need to support with the service brake again. Both service brakes and EEB are intended to work together in long downhill slopes. This allows the service brakes to cool off regularly and for you to keep your speed reasonably low and suitable for the steep descent. Muddy roads provide extremely poor traction and may be very treacherous, causing your truck to sink deep into the mud. Mud is slippery and sticky, so your choice of tires are very important. That's why your truck should always be equipped with tires providing good traction and that are suitable for use in muddy terrain. It is also advisable to engage the interaxle lock before driving into the unknown mud. If there are tracks or ruts in the muddy road, try to straddle the existing tracks as much as possible. This to avoid creating deep ruts that eventually lead to vehicles getting stuck on their undercarriages. Don't stop unnecessarily in muddy sections, especially if they are water-filled. Drive at an even speed, and if the mud is sticky, do not change gears unless it is absolutely safe and necessary to do so. In flooded conditions, try to avoid salty water, since this will contribute to corrosion of your truck. Check how deep the water is before you drive in and try to spot obstacles like logs, large rocks, or deep washed out sections. Always be prepared for unusual modes of transport when driving on flooded roads. And remember, boats always have the right of way. It is advisable to engage the interaxle lock before driving in. If at all possible, avoid to drive in water deeper than the wheel radius and never let the water reach above your air intake or exhaust pipe. Driving in flooded areas will create a bow wave, so maintain a slow and steady speed to prevent the bow wave from washing over critical parts of your truck. After passing through the flooded area, dry out your brakes by applying light pressure whilst driving slowly. It's important to clean your truck's undercarriage and to lubricate any lubrication points as per the owner's manuals afterwards. This is particularly important if you have been driving through salty water. Roads with deep ruts or potholes can cause serious damage to your undercarriage and transmission components. In some cases, the difference in level may be caused by sinking ground or earthquakes. Always determine if it is safe to continue. Slow down to a crawl when passing these deep ruts or potholes. Avoid the deepest areas and try to balance your track. Avoid, if at all possible, deep sunken areas. Stop and go out to check if it is safe to continue. In blind corners or bends, take extra care since oncoming road users may be on the wrong side of the road. If unsure if a vehicle is coming towards you, signal with a horn, and in some countries this is also a requirement in blind corners for trucks and buses. Sandy terrain may vary greatly with the area of operation. Some areas have firm, stable sand, whilst other areas may have loose sand that provides for poor traction. Then there is the very treacherous drift sand that is best avoided. Drive at an even pace, if at all possible, and if tracks are forming, straddle old tracks to avoid creating deep ruts. Normally you won't have to engage the interaxle lock or diff locks, but in extreme cases they may be needed. Wheel spin will dig your truck down into the sand, and the only way to get it out is to start digging. In drift sand conditions, you may lower the tire's air pressure to increase traction, and metal plates may be used under the wheels also to improve traction. Narrow bridges may be a feature of the past in most countries. However, in many parts of the world they are still a vital means of the road network. Before driving onto the bridge, make sure the load capacity of the bridge is sufficient to allow your truck to pass in a safe way. Approach the narrow opening in a straight line to avoid getting stuck with a trailer on the bridge girders. Maintain a slow and steady speed across. Avoid any harsh braking or acceleration when on the bridge. Only stop on the bridge if it is absolutely necessary due to traffic conditions. When facing oncoming traffic, consider the needs of other road users and adapt a polite attitude. Next time it may be you who needs some assistance. Finally, if you are in doubt of the bridge's capacity or integrity, do not cross. Contact your supervisor for advice. Landslides may occur due to many reasons. We will mention the most common. On steep slopes, the terrain may become unstable, and this may be spotted by observing the trees on the slope. If they are straight up, the mountainside is generally stable. But if they are leaning in towards the mountainside, it indicates that the slope is unstable and has already started to move downhill. Heavy rains may also cause landslides, and particularly if there is a rock face under the layer of dirt. The water will act as a lubricant, and the dirt with vegetation will slide off the rock face. Another culprit may be the earthquakes, whereby the shaking of the terrain loosens the dirt layer with vegetation and causes it to slide down the mountainside. Be on the lookout for the following signs as well: collapsed pavement, road surface, mud across the road, fallen rocks, and other indications of possible debris flows. If you have to drive past an area where a landslide went through, do so with caution and maintain a slow and steady speed, and avoid any harsh braking or acceleration, not to upset the already unstable terrain anymore. If you are caught in a landslide, do not jump out of your truck. You have a better chance of survival if you remain in the cab with your seatbelt attached. Well, this brings us to the end of the 5th module, and I hope that it has brought you some new insights. Feel free to use this module in your training, and as always, for any questions or comments, please send them to our email. It was nice to have this interaction with you all, and see you in a couple of weeks for the next module. And, as always, have a good one.